Well, I mentioned earlier that I was on StarTrek.com this week, and I noticed, did you realize that we have reached the 5-year anniversary of Star Trek 2009, of the reboot?
I did, because I haven't changed my underwear since the day of release.
How much fun for your people around you.
It's part of my body now.
I couldn't believe it. I was 5 years. I can't. It just feels like yesterday. Like
I know.
I don't know.
It is crazy.
It got me thinking about everything that happened after that movie came out, because I don't know if people were aware of this. I mean, probably the fleet was aware of it, because we probably got a lot of applicants in around that time. But there was the biggest spontaneous, not spontaneous combustion, expansion of a fandom I think I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. It literally happened overnight. Cause I'm a fan fiction writer. I've been a fan fiction writer since 1998. I have 1.3 million words on fanfiction.net or something like that. And I have a lot of fairly good community reviews, but nothing crazy. I put a story up, I think I put it up literally 2 days after I went to see the premiere. So, right away. And 6 weeks later, I had over 18,000 reviews. 1,800 reviews, excuse me. I wish I could say 18,000, that'd be great. Something about that community, and because I got in, I was maybe the 5th story put up in that category. Something about that, it just exploded, the fandom, that show. I don't know if it was Chris Pine being good looking and Spock being good looking and them both being good looking together. I don't know what it was, but something just created this massive fandom for a while. And yes, it eventually faded out, but there were groups meeting up all over the country to watch the movie together. I met up with a group in LA. We went to see the movie. No, first we met up at the Northridge, CSUN, California State Northridge, which is where they filmed the Academy for that movie. So we met up there. We had our picture taken on the steps that Kirk and Bones walked up and down. We got a picture taken there. We went to see the movie. Then we went to dinner. We spent this whole day together, just random people who had no idea, met each other on the internet just because everyone wanted to go see Star Trek again together. And I can't even describe it. And it got me thinking about why that didn't happen when Into Darkness came out. Why didn't we see a resurgence again? Because it wasn't as good of a movie? Because that audience had moved on and grown up and another one didn't come up behind it? I don't know.
I do have a theory, which is, first explain why there was the boom in popularity and why all of the pockets of fans just came out of the woodwork, and that can be summed up in 8 words, which is never underestimate the power of the original series. Yeah. One of the things for me was that I saw trailers. I did my usual thing. I got annoyed. I was like, oh, what are they doing? I love this. Why must they ruin it? Before I even knew what was going on. Then the more things kind of played out, it was like, oh, hang on, Carl Urban as Bones. That's going to be quite good because, he's been good in the films he's been in. Sylar as Spock. That's an interesting choice, but I think it could work. All that sort of stuff. And there was a huge amount of curiosity. I remember talking to random mates who were Star Trek fans just in the months running up to release, and everyone was so curious about how everything was going to play out. Simon Pegg as Scotty. I was like, how does that work? Surely that's going to be good, because, they wouldn't have cast him otherwise, but how does that work, Simon Pegg as Scotty? And people just wanted to see what these sort of new takes were on the characters, I think. Particularly Uhura as well, because how different is she? Wow. Or is she different? Maybe that was happening off screen. Perhaps we don't know. But, the thing is, with Into Darkness, I would argue, I don't bash Into Darkness as much as other people do, I think. I was quite tolerant of it, and I just had fun when I went to see the film. I did get annoyed when Spock shouted Khan, but, there we go. But, the rest of the film, and the continuity errors, and the fact they hid the ship in the ocean. But anyway, most of the film I really enjoyed. But even though it looked really cool, in all of the trailers, they'd clearly pulled out all the stops. They'd really had a good think about how to put together a good romp and a good blockbustery style movie, which is brilliant. That's a fantastic way of doing things, I think, anyway. it didn't have the same novelty because we knew what the characters were going to be like.
Yeah.
You know, there was only really one character that we were pretty sure was going to be in it, and we were not worrying, well, maybe some people were, but we were wondering how he was going to turn out.
Mm-hmm.
So, because it was more of a known sort of thing, maybe that's why. Maybe that's one of the reasons.
Could be. It was just, I think it just took me by surprise, you know, having been a Star Trek fan all my life, to all of a sudden have Star Trek be, you know, squealed about as much as, you know, I had seen in anime fandoms or, you know, in any other fandom I'd ever been in. Cause I'd never really known Star Trek to be that kind of fandom, you know what I mean? Like, you find for hordes of screaming girls, you know, you think about stuff, well now for Doctor Who, you know, or anime at the time, not Star Trek. You know, Star Trek had a different kind of fandom. You know, it was an older, you know, more sedate fandom, I guess I could say. Not sedate, because if you've been to, you know, kind of Star Trek convention, you know, that doesn't, but you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a squeal fandom.
Yeah, generally, unless people were gathering together. I mean, sedate does, on the surface of things, it sounds like you're slighting the fan.
No.
Actually, I don't think you are. I think that's fairly accurate, because once Enterprise had died down and finished, we weren't really doing anything. You know, I mean, for me, the Star Trek fandom was the Fleet. Because, you know, apart from watching DVDs, there wasn't very much at all that I could actually access. Because, I mean, I at that point, I still couldn't now, I don't think, without some form of major lottery when, couldn't afford to go to a convention.
Right.
You know, which is one of the sort of big meeting places. So when the film was announced in 2009, then all of a sudden, you know, the hope is back that something's going to pick up and, you know, something's going to maybe hit the TV screens or there'll be more for us to digest.
Yeah.
If you like.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's very true. And I mean, it's certainly brought back my love of Star Trek, you know, from the end of the first, you know, the movie, when the first time I saw it, I was like, okay, I have to see this again as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
You know, is there another showing coming on after this? Because I might just stay for it. But, and it was a great feeling, and I loved jumping back into that fandom in a new way. I'd never written Star Trek fanfiction before. You know, I had many stories, and not a single one of them. Well, no, actually, that's not fair. I had written Star Trek Enterprise before, but I'd never written original series or any other series.
Was that where Trip Tucker fell in love with a scientist?
But they're all tripping to Paul, yes. They are all tripping to Paul. I'm not even gonna lie. Not even gonna lie. But, anyway, it was, yeah, I don't know, it was kind of cool. It was a really cool summer, I remember. You know, I spent way too much money on movie tickets, like, ridiculously too much money on movie tickets. Because this isn't just movie theaters, you know, like for your 50-cent movie theater, it was LA movie theaters, which are ridiculous. But I still spent it because I wanted to see that movie again. I wanted to have that experience again. And, I didn't feel that way about Into Darkness. I saw Into Darkness once in the theater, and that was it. That was good enough for me. And I didn't enjoy it. I you know, it was a perfectly good movie, but it did not inspire that, oh my god, I have to see this again feeling.
Oh my god!
Yeah, and that's exactly
Get me back in.
Right. And it was 5 years ago, and that just makes me, 5 years. Wow. I
am gonna tell you a very quick story, which is, I went to see, the original relaunch one, the 2009 Star Trek.
Yeah.
With a bunch of people, including one guy who swore he would never go to the cinema to see modern films ever, and we managed to actually get him to go to watch Star Trek.
Yeah.
And, you know, the reviews were good from everyone. I only quibbled about one thing, I think, which was the Cardassian sunrise. I was like, they're not supposed to know about the Cardassians yet, God's sake.
Oh, yeah.
But it didn't even ruin the whole film for me, which something like that normally would. But, yeah, so we did that. We went in a big troop, and it was great. It was an awesome night out. Into Darkness, while everybody else wasn't doing the squealing fandom thing, I totally was. I went to the midnight showing, which, like, a midnight showing is a big deal in Shrewsbury anyway, because Shrewsbury movie theatres compared to LA movie theatres,
Yeah.
You guys would be like, what's this? Am I watching the TV in my front room? What's going on?
Anyway, yeah. I'm not trying to, Shrewsbury. I've seen some very good movies in Shrewsbury.
Yeah.
It's much better.
It's just like watching them in your front room in LA.
But anyway, go ahead with your story. What were you saying?
That's it. No, that's basically it.
Okay.
While I was breaking the trend for Into Darkness, because everybody else was like, and I was like, oh my god, it's another Star Trek movie.
Yeah.
And then they hit the ship in the ocean, and I was like, it's actually midnight, and they've done that to me. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I went to see it with two of my friends. The one who named Picard the Silver Fox, actually. And he is much more analytical about Star Trek, and he takes his Star Trek extremely seriously. I've been trying to get him to join the fleet for about 3 years, but he's a writer himself, an actual production writer in LA, so he never has time. But he thinks about movies differently, working in the industry, and he just, after the movie, I was like, oh, okay, that was, Benedict Cumberbatch, it was Kirk, Spock, whatever, and he's sitting here going, what was that I just saw, and can I get my money back? And I was almost a little touched, I was like, oh, no, don't hate it, because I'm gonna have to hear about why you hate it now, and I don't want to hear about why you hate it. I did. I'm still hearing about why he hated it, actually. But,
oh no.
Yeah. So it was totally different, because in 2009, he was just all over the place about it. So it was just completely different. But, yeah, that gave me pause. 5 years. Wow.
I know. We're so old. Oh gosh.
Oh my god, right?